Welcome, brothers and sisters in Christ. This is Father Tim Maples. This video is from St. John Vianney Parish in South Burlington, and I'm joined today with Deacon Peter Gummere. And as you should see in front of you, we have opened the Vermont Catholic Advance Directive. Deacon Pete came to St. John Vianney Parish to do a presentation about what this is all about over a year ago, and we wanted to have a digital version available, but we never were able to at that time. So we're making it today. Welcome, Deacon Pete, and thank you for joining and for explaining the advanced directive. And I'll let you give the introduction as to the context of what we're doing here.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me. And hello, everyone. The Vermont Catholic Advance Directive was developed by an attorney and a couple of priests and some other folks. I was involved with it. This is the Catholic Advance Directive. It is fully compliant with Vermont law, and it is fully compliant with church teaching. And, you know, the first question people ask is, well, what is an advance directive? Well, we've had a number of occasions to reflect on advance directives. And the reality is that sometimes we lose the ability to speak or to communicate in any fashion due to illness or due to perhaps an accident. And so we can't participate in making our own healthcare decisions. And the best thing to do, and in fact, Vermont law was written in contemplation of this, to provide for someone, perhaps someone in the family, but it could be someone else, to act as our agent to guide medical decisions and to support the values that we hold near and dear to us. And so this form was developed in response to that need. And in particular, some of the other forms that have been written have included things that are not consistent with church teaching. And so if someone is working with their attorney and they say, well, here's our standard form, and they start filling it out, the form is phrased in such a way as to make it often unclear as to what is really happening. And, you know, attorneys try to be very specific and use very specific language, but they don't necessarily understand the nuances of Catholic moral teaching. And so this form guides you very strongly in the direction of complying with Catholic moral teaching. So let's take a look at it. The Vermont Catholic Advance Directive form is showing on the screen here. And the first section is very simple and straightforward. Your name, your address, your phone number, your date of birth, and the date on which you fill this out and sign it. You may fill it out in advance, but not sign it. And so you leave that date blank until you do sign it, because that date is the date of execution of the form.
At that point, it would actually be legally binding at that point for.
It is a legal document.
I see.
And we'll go through the signature requirements. But so that first section is pretty self-explanatory. Now, immediately below this, there is some section that is in italics. This document must be signed and dated in the presence of two witnesses who have initialed each page. The following people may not be your witnesses. So your agent can't be a witness.
Because
You're
you'll name an agent and they can't
Right.
witness. Yes.
They can't witness their own the appointment of their own agency, creation of their own agency. A spouse cannot serve as a witness. A reciprocal beneficiary, and that's a lawyer type word, and that only applies in situations where you're in some kind of partnership with someone, usually a business partnership. Sometimes it's a partnership in which the survivor of the two individuals gets the hunting camp, things like that. But you know, children, grandchildren, parents, and siblings, you know, anybody that's an immediate relative cannot serve as a witness. And people would say, well, why is that? Well, you know, it puts the person in an awkward position potentially. And the law provides for those people not to be eligible to serve as a witness.
Yeah.
And then each page must be signed and initialed. Completed copies of this form should be given to whoever your agent is. And if you have more than one potential agent, you need to give it to all of them. Your doctor should have a copy. The hospital or institution at which you're likely to get most of your medical care should get a copy of it. And you can also file a copy with the Vermont Advanced Directive Directory, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's go down and see this next section, which says appointment of my healthcare agent. And this is important. I instruct my healthcare agent to act in accordance with Catholic teaching in all decisions regarding my healthcare. My healthcare agent should make any and all healthcare decisions for me in the event, this is important, in the event that I am determined to lack capacity by my physician for the duration of my incapacity. So that means that if you are in an accident and you're unconscious, your agent is immediately the individual that can make those decisions. However, next day you wake up from that stupor, that unconsciousness. Well, now you take control again.
Yeah.
Provided that you're
Yeah, in the event of, say, just old age or a terminal disease, it's likely that your agent at some point will just take over until the Lord calls you home. But as you say, for accidents or for sicknesses, it may very well be the case that you need someone temporarily to make medical decisions with your as your agent, but that you yourself will resume capacity.
Yeah, when you have capacity again, when you're able to communicate and think clearly, you're in charge. And important to understand, until you're in that situation where your doctor determines you can't participate, you're unable to participate, you're in charge. So you make the decisions. So now this next section, I appoint this person as my healthcare agent, or to be my healthcare agent. Name, address, phone number, work phone, home phone, cell phone. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. You need to fill that out. But you want to make sure that that person knows and understands how important this form is to you, and that you really want that person to advocate for your values, because you are the one who is appointing them. So you want somebody that'll really stand up for you. If this person is unavailable or unable to act as my healthcare agent, I appoint the following person to act on my behalf. So when would that alternate agent come up? Well, let's say you're out on a fishing trip in someplace in Minnesota, and you are paddling up some brook that doesn't have cell coverage, and you're really going to be out of touch for a few days. Well, then your alternate agent would be the person that would be in charge. So that alternate agent should also know exactly what you intend and be willing to support your Catholic teaching. And then there's an alternate agent number 2. So you could have on this form, you could appoint primary agent, alternate agent 1, alternate agent 2. All should be qualified to be an agent, and they should all know and understand what you expect of them. Now, one question that almost always comes up is somebody would like to have their oldest daughter and their oldest son be agents together. Or I would like all 4 of my kids to be the agent together. Well, that is a situation that is just not going to work, because getting 4 people or 3 people or 2 people to agree would not work. They can consult with each other, but that primary agent is the one that's in charge until and unless they decline or are unable to pick up the phone and say, yeah, this is who you think, who you're looking for. So then it would go to the alternate agent. But we can't have decision about mom's health or dad's health being made by committee in the real world. Too many.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not saying that it's impossible, that it's a bad thing to name, let's say, multiple children as your agents. You're just saying that one of them has to be the agent, and then someone has to go to the alternate, and then the next alternate. That they can't, with this form, and they shouldn't in general be a committee agent.
Yeah. There's an old story about the committee, or camel is a horse that has been designed by committee. So it's
yeah, and
so,
just if I recall from up above, also your someone's own children, immediate family, wouldn't be witnesses
right.
to the document anyways. But if you name someone as an agent or an alternate agent, even though they're not family, they can't be a witness. Someone else needs to witness the effecting of this document, because there you have the spot for their initials right there. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And the fact of the matter is that you may want your brother or sister or your cousin Charlie in Wisconsin, who knows you so well, to be that agent rather than children. And that's perfectly acceptable. But you just need to make the decision and stand by it. Now, instructions for my health care. This is at the top of the second page of the form. Instructions for my health care. My Catholic faith teaches that all human life is a precious gift from God, from the first moment of conception to the moment of natural death, and that euthanasia and assisted suicide are not permissible. Therefore, I oppose any action or inaction that is intended to cause my death. And that is almost verbatim out of Vatican documents in the Catechism. So it's pretty solid Catholic teaching. And then there's a list of things here. And those boxes are pre-checked, and we'll talk about that, the importance of each one of these. I wish to receive basic care which will allow me to be most comfortable, including food, water, and pain control. I have discussed my desires regarding this pain control with my agent. So you need to tell your agent, maybe I want to have pain controlled, but I don't want to be completely snowed. Sometimes the medical community, the hospitals and nursing homes will, and home health agencies will say, well, let's just render dad unconscious and let him check out. Well, that is not really morally sound. Is dad in severe and uncontrollable pain that the only way to control it is to heavy up on the morphine? Maybe that's appropriate. But we should not be going through that routine of deliberately dehydrating dad and just snowing him out of existence. That is pretty clear. Now, I wish to receive medical treatment appropriate to my condition as long as it is useful and offers a reasonable hope of benefit and is not excessively burdensome to me. That is, does not impose serious risk or some other extreme burden. Now, one of the questions that comes up is, does that mean that I have to do absolutely everything? No, it doesn't. There are many things that in individual circumstances, for good reason, you may not do, you may not want to do. For example, if someone has a brain tumor and it's considered fatal, and that this will be a terminal cancer, is a terminal cancer, it cannot be controlled by surgery. Maybe the person doesn't want to go through all that. And that is a reasonable thing to do. But, you need to make that decision in consultation with your doctor. And, that's, and it's not just brain tumor, but I know of a specific case where an individual who was a retired English professor who did not want to lose her ability to use language, did not want to have brain surgery on her cancer because he didn't want to lose the ability to use language, and the doctor told her that it was possible that you would lose that ability. Well, the woman was writing a book. She was 90 years old and still writing a book. And, I was not the bioethicist on that case, but I spoke with the woman who was, and she backed up the patient and questioned the doctor about whether she had really been consented. The doctor said, well, I got consent from her son. And the woman commented that the only time she saw her son was when he was out of money. And the poor lad at age 60 had not figured out how to cope with life. So the consent question is an important one.
And for her case there, it's okay for her not to consent to a particular treatment, even though it seems like maybe that treatment had a good possibility of extending her life. It was going to be such really a burdensome and not not an absolute guarantee that. Well, not a guarantee at all. She most likely would have had to just hang up the book. And so these are all you can weigh all of these parts of your situation and
Yeah.
age and the burden of the treatment and the likely outcome, all of them.
Yeah, the benefit wasn't there for her, but the burden would have been great. And in another case, someone may say, well, this isn't covered by insurance, and I'd have to, the co-pays on this would deplete everything that I've left for my spouse, and I'm not going to do that to her. Or even, I don't want to deplete everything that I have set aside for my kids. And I think that's a very generous attitude. But it's a question of what is the benefit, what is the burden from the point of view of the patient. And, you know, it should be an informed decision, understanding here's the benefit, here's the burden. You know, it could be pain. I don't want to undergo this procedure because I have had too much pain and I just can't tolerate any more surgeries or any more chemo or any more treatments of whatever sort it is.
Yep. And just as to read this statement that we are talking about, you know, medical care or treatment that's appropriate to my condition. Well, there can be conditions that are not terribly severe, but still you're not in a position to make decisions yourself at the moment, as we talked about, you know, incapacitated because of a car accident or something. You know, you get into very severe conditions in some people's medical cases, and it's not a given that every treatment available that you just have to do.
No. In fact, one of the cases that I would like to mention comes up in the very next section, and it has to do with nutrition and hydration. If I am unable to eat or drink on my own, I just messed up the screen there.
Get back to our right paragraph.
Yes.
Very good. Oh, yeah. There you go. I'll shrink the window while you're trying to get your mouse recalibrated there.
Okay, thanks. Okay. If I'm unable to eat or drink or eat and drink on my own, nutrition and hydration administered by medical means should be provided to me unless death is inevitable and imminent, so that the effort to sustain my life is futile, or unless I'm unable to assimilate food or fluids. That's important. And then it quotes from Pope John Paul, the administration of water and food, even when provided by artificial means, always represents a natural means of preserving life, not a medical act. Its use, furthermore, should be considered in principle ordinary and proportionate, and as such morally obligatory, insofar as and until it is seen to have attained its proper finality. Now, this is very explicit theological, philosophical language, which we can take apart. So what's proper finality? Well, it means the purpose for which it's intended, that is the nutrition and hydration of the body. So let's look at a case, a very specific one. There's a very good man, wonderful man from our parish who I'd helped both him and his wife to fill out their advance directive. And he had a variety of ailments. He had a bad cancer that he'd been treated for. He had a heart condition. He had a bad respiratory condition, chronic respiratory issues. And I think he had rheumatoid arthritis. And he probably had something else that I'm not even aware of. But, this was a sick man. He was up there in years, but still quite chipper and capable. But he developed pneumonia while in hospital. And the gentleman's wife asked me to come down and to help them sort things out. Well, as I walked into the room, I could hear him gurgling as he breathes. And that tells me immediately, this is probably a guy with pneumonia. And in fact, he had bad pneumonia. And his lungs had filled with fluid. They drained him with they tapped his lungs and drained the fluid. It filled up again. They tapped him again. They had him on antibiotics. They had him doing breathing treatments, nebulizer treatments to help break up the stuff in his lungs. Nothing was helping. He had a nasogastric tube going through the nose down the back of the throat that was blocked by something in the intestinal system, and his belly was just filling up with fluid. His lungs were filling up. The question was, well, what about IVs? Well, IVs is not going to sustain life terribly long on its own. It's got to be augmented by other means. But the fact is that the guy was really near death to start with. But giving him fluid and hydration would actually have increased his suffering, because as you pump more water into the body, it has to go somewhere. And it's not going out through the kidney. That was the other thing. His kidneys were shutting down. So, death was really imminent. And giving him more fluid was not going to do anything but go right into the lung. And, that would increase suffering, maybe even hasten his death rather than prolonging his life. So, the obvious thing is, well, you don't do that. It's his time, and the Lord actually called him home later that night. And, it was a sad situation, really wonderful guy, and it was a tough decision for family and for me. But my job was to give proper moral counsel and proper personal support, and it worked out. And that's the sort of thing that I mean by you have to look at the individual situation. Sometimes a general rule doesn't apply when it has to do with complications.
Yeah.
Like that.
As the article says here, we're presuming that I will want nutrition and hydration given to me, even if it's through a tube, and unless if death becomes inevitable and close, then maybe we take away the tubes, you take away the IV, but it's not being considered as a treatment. The hope would be you assess a person and say, well, maybe treatments can help the medical ailment of whatever condition they're in. You have treatment and nutrition and hydration, even if it's through a tube. It's not really considered a treatment. It's just food and water, and you just hope that the two of those can work together. But maybe the treatments just aren't there, or the treatments aren't going to do anything, and there will come a point where nutrition and hydration really aren't going to help either.
Yeah. And that's exactly what that paragraph means. So that's important to understand. Then the next section, I request and direct that my medical treatment and care be provided to me to preserve my life without discrimination based on age, physical or mental disability, or quality of my life. And these are some terms that really are important. People should not be discriminated against, like that retired college professor. She's old, and these people at that age don't know what they're doing. So let's ask your son for consent, that sort of thing. Physical or mental disability. Someone has considerable physical disability, or they may be, someone with Down syndrome or something like that. Well, we don't want to discriminate against them. We don't want to just usher them out the door. We want to respect them as a person and treat them appropriately. And we don't want somebody making a decision based on the quality of my life, because my life is whatever quality I've got is whatever the Lord gives me. It's not up to me to make a decision that I don't have a quality of life anymore, and so I'm just going to check out. Or for the healthcare providers to say, oh, he has no quality of life. That's not their decision. And it's a very slippery concept. It's very relative.
Yeah, Deacon, is it true to say that we really don't use the term quality of life as a medical term or as a moral criterion? Because you're talking about like pain or treatment or the ability of a person to respond or the capacity of a person to respond. That quality of life is just such a vague, subjective idea that if people begin to think that they're the judge of your quality of life, it's going to lead to discrimination. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, exactly. It is not a term that I will refer to in any decision or any guidance that I'm giving, except that don't use that term. I can't tell you how many times I sat in ethics committee at the hospital, and somebody said, oh, he has no quality of life, or his quality of life, or her quality of life is so poor. Well, that's getting dangerous there, folks. You're making a judgment based on stuff that's really not yours to decide. The only quality of life that I can get my mind around is either you are alive or you're not alive. Or you're actually in the process of dying right now. And those are pretty clear distinctions. Quality of life is just a slippery slope sort of concept. Okay, if my death from a terminal illness is imminent, I wish to refuse treatment that would only secure a precarious and burdensome prolongation of my life. I wish to be attended by a Catholic priest, receive the sacraments of reconciliation and the anointing of the sick and viaticum, Holy Communion. And those are perfectly proper requests. I can refuse treatment that would only secure or would only very short-term prolongation of my life. And when I say short-term, hours, yeah. Maybe a day or two, yeah. A week or a month or a year, no, that's way too long. If you're dying you're dying. And if you're still alive and your body's still trying to function, let it go. Continue to live, and let's not do anything to hasten death. Now, this next paragraph is one that neither Father Tim nor I have ever had to worry about personally. If I am pregnant, so gentlemen, you can just erase that from your decision. And if I'm pregnant, in which every means taken to preserve and nurture the life of my unborn child, including the continuation of life-sustaining procedures for myself, if these measures could sustain the life of my unborn child until birth. So that's a statement that women who are pregnant would need to take into account. And you know, there are circumstances, as with anything else in the area of healthcare ethics, healthcare morality, there are some tough decisions, some challenges. You know, Father Tim, or most of the, I'll say pretty much any of the priests, or I can help you with that, those kinds of decisions, give you guidance. Other considerations or wishes for my health care. One thing that an attorney suggested to me, and as a very bright man, very capable, is that there's a clause that he uses to dissuade any attempt to circumvent the agency that you have set in place. For example, instead of your cousin Charlie from Wisconsin being a good guy, maybe he's a bad guy and he wants to hasten your death, even though your plan is not to check out prematurely. And so he thinks that your son or daughter is not treating you properly. He goes to court and petitions to be appointed guardian. Well, you could put in there that if guardianship should become an issue, I want my primary healthcare agent or my alternate number one or alternate number two to be appointed guardian and no other person. And that's sometimes prudent. And it's what one particular attorney recommended. And I've worked fairly closely with this guy on a number of issues. The third page is the disposition of remains. And we'll talk about a question that Father Tim raised in just a moment. And to relieve my family, the disposition of remains, funeral goods and services, this section is very helpful if you do fill it out. It is a way of just simplifying the funeral arrangements and what you really want to have. I will tell you that I have done a funeral service in a funeral home, a service outside of Mass, and separately an interment for a parishioner, two separate cases where the family members did not want a Mass. In one case, they did not want a priest. They were fallen away Catholics and they had whatever personal baggage there was. Mom was a daily communicant until she went into the nursing home. And then she regularly got communion calls thereafter. And Mom was pretty clearly suffering from dementia. And at some point, one of the kids apparently asked her, "What would you like to have for a funeral?" And she said, "Oh, just short and sweet, put me in the ground." No, not a terribly reflective comment. But here was a gal who had, from the whatever age it was, 7 or so, that she started receiving communion all the way up to certainly late 80s, maybe 90. And I forget what her age was. She had been practically a daily communicant that entire time. And she didn't want a Catholic funeral. I don't think so. I think she wanted one, but somebody manipulated her out of it. So it's important to have direction for what you want to have for funeral. And usually the really preferred practice is a funeral mass. And Father Tim can probably talk a little more than I can on the theology, but that is the fullness of our experience of Christ here on earth, is the sacraments. And so why wouldn't I want to have the fullness of the Mass be the final prayer for my soul?
Yeah, I want to repeat the really the beauty of it. It's kind of, it should be innate in every Catholic that we would want for our funeral service, which hopefully we would want. First of all, every Catholic should have a Catholic formal liturgical service. Now that could literally be a deacon at the graveside offering a few of the church's prayers. But if we're going to have any sort of formal liturgical funeral rites for a Catholic, to have the Mass above and beyond is of course, what we think it would be innate for every Catholic, that they would want it, and that their children, even if their children are no longer practicing Catholics, would say, Mom would want a funeral Mass. We're going to bring her remains to church and have a funeral Mass. I want to not to make people think that it's a sin if this doesn't happen, but I guess I would give the advice for any Catholic: if you didn't think your children would even be comfortable arranging a funeral Mass for you, or coming to a funeral Mass, or you had your own reasons why you didn't think a funeral Mass is going to work when you pass away, then you make arrangements with your favorite pastor to have Masses said, memorial Masses, because of the theology. I want Masses said for me when I die, and
me too.
And there might be decent reasons to abbreviate the funeral services, not have a Mass, but have shorter liturgical ceremonies. But then still innate in every Catholic should be like, well, but of course I still want a Mass said for me somewheres.
Well, P.S. after I found out that this family did not want the funeral Mass, I had a Mass or two, requested a Mass or two for this woman, and about 6 other people did too.
Well, we go back to our page here, the Disposition of Remains.
Well, you can appoint an agent to take care of all that. And here again, I'm going to appoint somebody, and I want them to do what I want them to do, which is going to be obviously the Mass and the full Catholic liturgy. And so, you plug in your name, and then you say, I appoint this individual to be my agent for disposition of remains and funeral goods and services. So this person's agency doesn't take effect until you die. And there's nothing for that person to do until after you die. And then you have an alternate agent also. My parish affiliation is whatever your parish is. And here we have pre-checked. I want my funeral to include the Catholic Mass of Christian burial at this parish. That's pretty clear. Burial should be made in the blank cemetery. And I know at St. John Vianney, you have that cemetery right next door.
Our diocesan cemetery is right next door, Resurrection Park.
Okay. And you can, I have a family plot and would like to be buried beside such, my spouse or whatever, whomever. Position number. Now, one pastor told me that he was working with an individual, and the individual said, position number. Does that mean 1 for vertical and 2 for horizontal? Little joke there, but
plot number, we might say, if you know that, if you're in touch with the cemetery.
Yes. Or I have no plot, but wish to be buried in the cemetery. My agent and I have discussed the following. I'd like to donate my organs. I would like to donate my non-vital organs. I have already made arrangements for my funeral with such and such funeral home. Now, can you do organ donation? Yes, you can. A lot of people question whether the death by neurological criteria or brain death is really death. And if it is properly determined, I think the consensus of the Catholic bioethics community is, if it is really properly determined, yes, it is brain death is death. However, not every physician and not every hospital is properly equipped to make that determination. But that's something to take into account. So you could do any of those, but just make sure that you know what you're getting into there. Some people wonder whether they are ushered out prematurely to take advantage of the vital organs, and you just discuss that with your agent, whatever your preference is, and that's it. And you can donate organs, or you can refuse to donate organs. It is your choice, but express what your wishes are. I want my funeral arrangements made by such and such. I'd like to have my body cremated. You can do cremation. It used to be pretty strongly discouraged. I think actually forbidden, but it is acceptable provided that it's for good reason. But the real preference is to bring the body into the church, and the preference would probably be to also bury the body rather than cremate it. But there are many people that do cremation, and your cremains, your ashes can be brought into the church. I'd like to have a casket if it is possible, an open casket if it is possible. That's up to you. That's one of those issues that is completely optional, or I do not want to have an open casket. And, just think on those and talk to Father Tim, talk to me, and, make your own decision on the things that are optional.
Yep.
Um,
If I
and-
interject,
go ahead.
what I mentioned beforehand is that at this time I seem to be getting lots of questions about what to do with ashes, how to bury someone's ashes if once they've been cremated, and the long and the short of it is that the church no longer forbids cremation, but it only permits cremation on the grounds that a person's ashes should be treated like their body. It's their mortal remains. It's their final resting place should be a final resting place. So the church has even really strongly come out against the practices of scattering the ashes or just passing on the ashes in some sort of container as if it's a family heirloom from one house to another, or from one generation to another. So if it's a person's, well, we point out all of the funeral rites of the Catholic Church and all of our references to the resurrection of the body, they all look forward to and assume that the person's body or ashes will be laid to rest in a place of respect, in a place that's more or less permanent. So a columbarium in a cemetery is fine. To be buried in the ground in a cemetery is fine. I got a question recently about a private cemetery. I said, I can go there. You're actually putting the ashes to rest in a permanent place. Doesn't matter that it's a private cemetery. I can go there as a priest and do the burial prayers, but the scattering of the ashes it's offensive. Really, it's against the Catholic funeral rites, and it's really against our complete tradition as Catholics.
Yeah. The idea is that Jesus died, he lived, he died, he went into the ground, and then rose from the ground. And we follow Jesus. So that's kind of a way of thinking about it that is sometimes helpful. I know that I've had people ask about, well, I want to divide the ashes. Want to have 3 files. I've got 3 kids. I want to have each of them have some of my ashes, and then the rest to be buried. I shudder at that one. I try to discourage them. Had one case that I heard about. I didn't personally deal with it. One of the priests told me that he had a parishioner who had died. Her husband was still living. The ashes were in an urn on the mantelpiece, and that the kids knew when Papa died, they were to have him cremated, get Mom's ashes and his ashes, and have them buried in the family plot out in Nebraska or wherever it was, Iowa, I think. Anyway, it's somewhere out west. And that, in the words of the priest, that one is messy, but we can deal with messy. And he was able to figure out a pastorally sound solution, because the guy was at this point towards the end of his life anyway, not imminent, but I'm not going to second guess him. The very fine priest. There was one case, and a particular priest told me that he had a parishioner who was had worked as his housekeeper and started taking on some other responsibilities of housekeeping and for other people. And she became ill. Her son took over the business, and he wanted to expand the business. And so a particular individual had made an inquiry of him and said that he wanted some references. And he said, "Father, is it okay if I give you as a reference?" "Sure, you do a great job." So he went, and the woman said, "Okay, that's great. I'd like to see what you can do." And so he went in and cleaned house. And he, at the end of the day, told her that it was about an hour longer than she had envisioned, but that he had done all kinds of really good stuff, and enumerated all the things that he had done. And even that jar with those ashes on it, on the metal piece, I even dumped that and cleaned the jar. And she said, "That was my husband." And yeah, the other thing that he had done was take all the trash to the dump. Hubby's ashes were
another reason to insist that there be a definitive plan to have your ashes, your mortal remains, placed to a final resting place where there's no confusion as to what this is and who's laid to rest there.
Yeah. Well, we are almost done. There's one more page, and it's probably the simplest in terms of decisions to be made, but this is the signature page, and this is very important. It is essential that things be done right. You print your name in that space where it says name, and then signed. Now, do not sign it until your witnesses are present, because they cannot witness, they cannot state that they witnessed your signature unless they actually see you sign. So you have to sign there. First witness has to fill in their name, address, and their name, signature, address, second witness, etc. Okay, now they also need to sign not only that page, but they need to initial each of the other pages, which you will also sign in their presence. Okay. Then down at the bottom, there's one more section. If you don't fill this out prior to entry into the hospital or into a nursing home, one of the hospital personnel or someone such as your attorney, hospital representative, ombudsman, member of the clergy, Vermont attorney, or an individual designated by the probate court has to fill this out. And at this point, you have the name of that individual, their title, position, their address, and they have to sign stating that they explained it all to you. And then down below, your signature, date, witness number one's initials, witness number two's initials. So this argues very strongly for filling it out prior to entry into the hospital or nursing home. And at this point, we have the form completed. So then you make copies, you file them with the individuals that need to get a copy, which will be your doctor, your hospital or healthcare institution, your agent, your alternate agent, your second alternate agent, your attorney, and then you can also send a copy to the Vermont Advanced Directive Registry, which is actually, I think it's down in New Jersey, but it is functioning on contract with the state of Vermont. And the reason for doing that is, supposing you're traveling out there to Wisconsin to see Cousin Charlie. Well, you have an accident where you're taken ill out there in Wisconsin and nobody knows anything about your healthcare wishes, but you've got a little card in your pocket that says that you have a Vermont Advanced Directive on the registry. The doctor or the hospital can contact them, identify themselves, and make reference to some code numbers. And all of a sudden, they can have a look at your advanced directive and see exactly what you want. Now, this form is going to be respected across state lines if you are still a resident of Vermont. That is extremely common. Some states say that provided that you're not opting for something that is contrary to their state law. And, you know, I'm not an attorney. I can't give you any legal counsel, but, you know, pretty much nationally, that's going to be respected. It'll probably be respected in other countries if you're doing international travel. It's probably a good idea to bring a copy with you and have it in your, you know, maybe same pocket that you have your passport in, but it's not absolutely necessary. But if you have questions, I know Father Tim can field the questions quite well. He can give you my contact information. You can get my contact information from the diocesan webpage. Actually, I'll give it to you right now. My home phone number is 802-748-3978, and Deacon Pete Gummere, and you can contact me via email, p.gummere, all one word, at vermontcatholic.org. And that's also on the webpage. So please let us know how we can help you. And if you're from another parish, I'm sure that your own parish priest can help you with that. And Father, do you have anything else to add? I'm sure that you may, as a pastor, want to share something further.
Well, that's great. I will be posting this video. It'll be up on our parish YouTube channel in South Burlington, but I'll be linking to all of the diocesan resources. So, you know, every priest is aware of the diocesan resources and probably also ready and able at any time to answer more detailed questions about the advanced directive. I want to repeat what you mentioned at the beginning. It's that there's other proposed forms to fill out, and states have some laws about, you know, how an advanced directive becomes binding, but then other organizations and agencies might propose alternate advanced directives that they're not going to quote Pope John Paul II in it. They might include language that we've definitely shied away from, like quality of life, which we really don't find helpful for a real moral analysis. It's just too vague of a term when dealing with the real issues that this covers. So we encourage people to use the Vermont Catholic version of an advanced directive, as opposed to the other versions that might be offered or suggested to people here and there. So I'm going to put the links for all the diocesan resources we've suggested will be in the description for this video, and maybe also on our parish website, and of course on the diocesan website.
Yeah. One other thing, sometimes people have had the situation where hospital says, oh, well, we have our own advanced directive form that we use, or we always use this such and such form. And it's perfectly acceptable to say, well, this is my form and it expresses what I want. And, you know, they may be familiar with this form and want you to take some options that are not morally permissible, just because it's simpler for them. Don't let them coerce you into taking an alternate form if you filled this out. Okay.
Sound words. Thank you, and all the best for your ministry. And
you too, Father.
thank you.